of the things to point out based on these sections as well is that if a juror has to be away from home for more than one day because of the trial and can prove that it was necessary because of factors like the distance from home to court, health, lack of communication between home and the place of summoning, or needing to attend court on multiple days, they can get additional money for lodging and basic needs during that time, as long as it is reasonable. You see those couple of words there, as long as it is reasonable, but that's what the Jury Act says. So that's just a did you know for those who may be called to serve on a jury. And then the trivia for today is, how old must you be to no longer be able to serve on a jury? So let me repeat. How old must you be to no longer be able to serve on a jury? So that's our trivia question. And if you win, you will get the credit as is customary. But let's get into the meat of the matter for today. The right to jury, what does that mean? Now, the efficacy of jury trials has again been in the news cycle following some comments that were raised by our Chief Justice Brian Sykes, who indicated that given the known deficiencies in the jury system, including inadequate compensation for jurors, frequent exemptions, and so on, he believed that the jury trial system in Jamaica ought to be abolished. He made a call on the Minister of Justice, the Honorable Delroy Chuck, to consider judge-only trials altogether. Now, we want to point out at Jamaicans for Justice that we believe that the common law principle of the right to jury ought to be respected. We should maintain the hybrid system that currently exists, and we have been quite vocal on the importance of the jury system. And I want to also point out that Minister of Justice Delroy Chuck has acknowledged that some of the issues that have given cause for concern among the Chief Justice and even JFJ themselves or ourselves, that he will be looking at it. He made the comments last year, September, and again in October of 2023. But unfortunately, despite these public commitments from the Justice Minister, no tabling of any Joint Select Committee, no tabling of any bills or anything has been done. However, speaking just recently, last week, I believe, at a social justice project equipment handover ceremony at the University of the West Indies on March 1, Minister Chuck again made some commitments. Let's hear from him.
I'd like to add, Chief Justice has been publicly and privately speaking about the jury system. It is a common law innovation. We have had it for centuries. I don't think the executive can remove it like that. But I think what the Chief Justice has brought up needs public discussion. And I will take the opportunity to bring a cabinet submission and also for it to be a joint select committee of Parliament to listen to the various views as to how we can improve the jury system, or if it can be improved, to remove it, as the Chief Justice has argued.
All right, that was Minister Chuck making a commitment that a joint select committee will be convened. He will table and pilot that process, starting with the cabinet. Again, unfortunately, we've heard some of these commitments from Minister Chuck, but we will see what those discussions unfold. We're joined by attorneys at law, Bert Samuels and Clyde Williams. Both gentlemen are on.
Blessed love.
Good afternoon. I'm steering the ship alone today. Jade isn't here with me, so just Mikhail here speaking. Let me start with you, Mr. Samuels. What is your immediate reaction to the comments made by the Chief Justice?
Bert, you need to unmute your mic.
Yes. I find it in a way self-serving that a member of the judiciary is looking at another set of judges and saying, let's get rid of those judges and let us as judges preside over trials. I would have preferred it came from an arm other than the judiciary itself to be asking for the removal of a part of the judiciary, because jurors are judges. It looks self-serving and it shows respectfully a blindness to our history. Ogle, William Gordon, Sam Sharp were not allowed to be tried by their peers. We have named our parliament of the name Gordon House for a reason. The reason being that we respect that they were part of colonial terror and that part of the preservation of the state, not directing and persecuting members of the population, is to put in place the jury system, which is not part of any of the three arms of government, and it makes participation in the justice system at a people level. Remember, the Chief Justice is effectively appointed by the Prime Minister. The Director of Public Prosecutions can be influenced, and the appointment can be by the Prime Minister. So do you envisage a situation where the Chief Justice is the Prime Minister's Chief Justice and the Prime Minister's DPP? They cause their political enemies to be arrested, and they put them on trial by the Chief Justice appointed by the same Prime Minister. What would guard against that, the persecution of your political enemies or an oppressive state? We have a president who is north of us, who is asking the court to say that he cannot be tried for any crimes. So it's not inconceivable that you have a head of state, even in modern times, who begins to become very arbitrary, and the only control of that, I would submit, is the jury system. That's my take.
Thank you so much. Mr. Williams, we'll just ask for your opinion as an opening once we take the break and return.
If you're in business, get on the bridge. 876-669-5000. If you're in business, get on the bridge. 876-669-5000. If you're in business, get on the bridge. 876-669-5000. Call now.
We up, yeah. Free up, yeah.
Calling all bridge builders to the Bridge 99 FM, your global partners for outside broadcasts, connecting you from Jamaica to the world.
Where will we go?
From Kingston to Portmore, downtown, Spanish Town, Canada, USA, and as far as Dubai, we keep you connected across the 7 continents of the globe.
Can I get your number?
Call us at 876-630-3153 for information about partnering with the Bridge 99 FM.
That's 876-630-3153 to take your outside broadcasts to the world.
No borders, no boundaries, just the sound of good music.
The people's champion. Our mission is love. Our vision is love. Jamaicans for justice. The people's champion. Justice.
Welcome back to Let's Start Justice. We're discussing the matter of the right to jury, or a trial by jury rather, and we're joined by attorneys Bert Samuels and Clyde Williams. Sir Williams, to pick up with you, what is your immediate reaction before I start getting into some of the specifics?
I agree with Bert. I want to just first indicate my agreement with Bert on it's not from the mouth of the Chief Justice to be championing this at all. It is similar to when, for instance, the court going to change some law. It goes up to the highest court, and there is due and full consideration. Jury trials, not legislated, are part of the fabric of the justice system. It's part of the right of the individual as it has evolved as part of justice for serious trials. Not all trials, because most of the trials that take place in the courts are done in the parish courts. But those parish courts have limited jurisdiction in terms of sentencing powers. Usually 3 years, some law might pass of 4 or so years. but they can't send anybody for 15, 20, 25, 30 years.
Yeah,
They can't
to
impose.
yeah, to interject a little bit as you further that point,
That's fine.
Mr. Williams. I found it the comment from Chief Justice with the greatest of respect to be a little troubling to suggest that most trials are heard by judges only without clarifying that point that you made in terms of the powers of the parish court and that there are limitations in that regard. So I just wanted you to emphasize that a little bit before you continued.
Yes, very, very significant. I mean, there's a whole difference between 2 years, 3 years, and 15, 20 years, 10 years. So that's very significant. So the parish courts try what we call minor offenses. The most significant offenses they try are white collar crimes, fraud and forgery, and so on. And even those crimes, you still have limitations in terms of sentencing power. For the Supreme Court, we say they have what we call inherent jurisdiction. they can determine a particular practice right there and then once it is not seen as unjust in the circumstances and so on. So for the Chief Justice to be talking about changing one of the pillars of the trial of serious offenses, murder, wounding with intent, all those serious offenses, rape and so on, for him to be thinking, and it is being said in a manner that is, just by the way, kind of like we should consider it, rather than rigorous consideration that he would give to if somebody were to bring an argument in law before him to change something. So that's my first point in relation to the system. The second point I want to make is that you're having difficulties in making it work is not a basis to get rid of it. It is just so very clear to me. So for instance, to juxtapose, to make the point, there are only 30% turnout to vote for the local government election. Should we then get rid of local government elections?
And some have argued for that. Interestingly.
Because 70% don't turn up.
Yes.
But let us use generals. Generals the last time was at 38 point something percent. Should we get rid of it because it's not working the way? In other words, let's not take the path of least resistance. Let's find a way to make the jury system work. Let's increase the pool. So all electors are on the jury list. Everybody with a driver's license on the jury list. We can find a variety of ways to broaden the pool and to ensure we have good trials. And my final point is numbers. Bert, we would have spoken about this over the years where we are whittling away. This started some years ago, and when we said they were whittling away to rid ourselves, they said, no, we're not doing anything of the sort. Well, here, see what they know. So they moved murder trials from 12 to 2 years. Go ahead, Bert. Go ahead.
What they did firstly was to move it down to 9, and then they say you can have a majority verdict. It doesn't have to be unanimous. And then sometimes it's now down to 5. So it's a whittling away process. Yes, you're inviting me to go further?
Yes, please, Bert.
Because I wanted to explain this hybrid system and that you already have serious crimes at the Supreme Court level that are being heard by judges only. So if you could explain the whittling away.
I could explain that. Right. Let me tell you what happened. So they have now said that the accused can elect to ask for a judge-alone trial. And I think part of the benefit of that was during the COVID times, the gathering of 12 or 7 or 9 was difficult and it created its own challenges. So persons were awaiting trial, they were in custody, awaiting trial. And at that time it served well. But here one of the hitches. And Clyde, I want you to respond. The accused alone cannot make this decision. He has to hold hands with his adversary, and the prosecution has to agree. So what happens? You see a judge who you know is fair, and you say, I want that judge to try me alone. And the prosecution, finding that you want him, they block it. And there are examples of the accused wanting Judge A alone and the prosecution opposes, and the law is that if they don't hold hands with the accused, he can't make a selection. So it's not his selection. So even that hybrid system, because you have to hold hands with the prosecution, is of no use in my view. It's against the principles of law.
But it's corrupted. Insofar as the crown is not on trial, I am the one on trial here. And you say I can choose between a bench trial or a jury trial. I'm the one on trial. So I will make an assessment as to where I think the justice will be split a lot better.
Yes.
Yes.
But to ask me then to say to the prosecution, do you agree? That's, for me, that's a corruption of the thing because the prosecution not on trial.
I wanted to make a point about the fact that we are on the road for the constitutional guarantee of trial by jury, and I'm going to show you why I say so. In 2011, the right to vote was enshrined in the Charter. So you have at section 13(3)(m), subsection 2, that you have a right to be registered and to vote in free and fair elections. That's the part. Now, if it is that the Jury Act says that you exercise the right to be a juror because you're on the voters list, we already have a constitutionally protected voters list. So we are on the road to making trial by jury constitutionally protected because we already have a protection of the list. I think that this debate should not be whether there should be jury trials or not. It should be whether it should be inserted in the Constitution.
Absolutely. Yes.
Because Bogle and Gordon and Sam Sharp are asking us to do that. And we have lip service to these heroes, We don't implement what they say. That's why Garveyism is not mandatory. We just give lip service and put their faces all around. But we don't respect what they went through. And if we did, we would ask for jury trials to be enshrined in the Constitution.
One of the things, Mr. Samuels, a listener asked me to pose this question to you because they've heard the comparisons to our national heroes and their experiences, whether or not we're being alarmist given that was a matter of the past. And a comment just came in on WhatsApp around the independence of our Chief Justice and DPP, and again, whether or not we're being alarmist by making those comparisons. What would be your response?
When you talk about the independence of the Chief Justice, remember, when he was to be selected, the Prime Minister virtually wanted to put him on probation.
Probation, yes.
For appointment. So those
But the public did say that would be undermining the Constitution. I remember we counted it publicly.
Yes. How can you? And it is still that it is the Prime Minister's Chief Justice. I don't know if my friend wants to go as far as to because if you nominate him, he becomes the Prime Minister's elect, and therefore that is the possibility of him going, not him, Brian Sykes. I'm talking about the institution. Yes. Going with the Prime Minister's wishes is not far-fetched. Who could ever say that's far-fetched? And therefore, the independence is just lip service, in my view, based on the construction of the Constitution. And once you get the Chief Justice being selected by the Prime Minister in consultation with the Leader of the Opposition, which is just a joke, it is possible that he may give the wishes of who appointed him. And remember, the past President of the United States is now fighting to say, if he commits a crime, he should not be tried. Not far.
I would disagree with Bert on the question of the individual who is appointed. I think the system it's unfortunate that we still have the PM appointing the Chief Justice after consultation with, but it doesn't take away from the fact that the persons who may eventually be appointed may in fact be persons who are qualified for the job in terms of their integrity, in terms of their forensic ability as judges, and in terms of their commitment to the work itself. So I would look at it a little differently from Bert and say that the system causes persons to be under a shadow in a sense because it is a political boss that appoints the head of the other branch of government. So the system, I would say, as distinct from individuals, because you have persons at the bar, solid lawyers, good solid lawyers, who could become Chief Justice and would be worthy of the appointment, but then the person who appoints is the head of the executive, the political branch.
Yes.
And so that then casts. So for many of us, we are saying we need to stop that.
We have to take the break now.
That's correct.
We have to take the break, but I agree, and I remember there were some calls for the Judicial Services Commission to be more involved in that process. But when we pick up, I want us to quickly talk about the gaps and how we fix those things administratively rather than go to the extreme. Please stay with us.
Hungry for deals? Get the new Crunch Sandwich Combo from KFC for just $600. A finger-licking good deal. The time by KFC is
1:30.
At MOJ, Ministry of Justice, come access quality service to keep order within the nation. We facilitate good relation. Legal aid in your pocket. A little is child diversion for you to need expertise. Victim service, we help you cope with grief. Restorative justice, build back the peace. No matter where you come from, and we say justice for all Jamaicans. MOJ, Ministry of Justice, come access quality service.
MOJ, taking justice to the people of Jamaica.
KFC! New crunch sandwich from KFC. Great flavor, great price, it's for me. KFC signature, hot and spicy. Chicken with the lettuce, mayo, fries and Pepsi. We've got you covered when you're hungry. The new crunch sandwich from KFC. We've got you covered when you're hungry. The new crunch sandwich from KFC.
Hungry for deals? Get the new Crunch Sandwich Combo from KFC. A small hot and spicy chicken sandwich with lettuce and mayo, plus fries and a Pepsi for just $600. Also available in barbecue. A finger-licking good deal. KFC.
It's Jamaican, it's Caribbean, to the world on the Bridge 99 FM. You heard?
The people's champion. Our mission is love. Our vision is love. Jamaica.
We're here with attorneys Bert Samuels and Clyde Williams discussing the right to a jury trial and some of the recent calls that were made by the Chief Justice and, of course, the Justice Minister signaling that he will be piloting bill and a submission through Cabinet first and the bill possibly through a joint select committee. So let's see where that goes. But to you, Sir Williams, what are some of the gaps that exist why we aren't getting the level of participation, if you will? From one of the cases that JFJ supports, Mario Dean matter, if you remember, the last time it was postponed, it was because there weren't enough jurors done by St. James to hear the matter. So what are some of the gaps that you have taken note of so we can start looking at some broad recommendations that can be made?
Right. Well, the first thing has to do with the welfare of the persons who come forward as jurors. They are treated with scant regard. You can't ask persons to leave their home and take time from their work to sit on a jury that could run for a week, 2 weeks, whatever the term is, because they finish one trial and move to another trial. And you treat them with scant regard. The rooms in which they stay are not sufficiently comfortable. The encouragement, the honorarium or gratuity is insufficient. So I would say the welfare, we need to focus on that. Jurors need to have a room when they come, where they can sit down on one couch and on a tough bench. A tough bench, I have a juror, they must sit down on sometime on one little piece of chair. A couch with a little machine, with a little thing for coffee, you can get something hot, you can get something cool, and so on. It's a long trial and process. And when time comes for them get the little lunch, they shouldn't be going all over the place. No way. It's a nice, comfortable place. Lunch orders are taken sufficiently. If people have special dietary requirements, those are dealt with, and persons stay right there in the comfort of the premises and then go to try the case itself. It's a very hard thing to do. So that's the welfare. The second thing is that we have to find a better way of summoning persons to come and serve for the jury. I don't think we are sufficiently serious about that entire process itself. So the summoning of the jurors. And thirdly, I do believe we need to expand the pool. So not just the electors list, everybody with a driver's license, and there might be some other ways of measuring everybody who does PAYE, for instance. Once you have electors list, PAYE, driver's license. In other words, enlarge the pool. And finally, I don't like to have people do things they don't want to do. So I'm wary about imposing severe penalty on people who skip out of jury duty. I'm wary of that because, as I said, if somebody don't want to do it, it might be a disservice to put them on the jury when they violently opposed to trying cases. But I think we need to look at the circumstances in which we allow persons not to turn up for jury duty. Those are my comments on that area.
All right. Thanks so much. Sir Samuels?
Yes. I would add, I endorse all that has been said. He has said about 80% of what I wanted to say. I also say there is no history of anyone hurting jurors, anybody, hunting down jurors who returned a verdict that they didn't like. So it's pretty safe. And my friend will tell you that the judges tell the jurors that they are judges of the facts, but they are not being treated like judges. It's the room and where and also I couldn't leave it out saying, I know my friend is going to agree with me, that the problem with trial by judge alone is that 90% of our judges are former prosecutors.
Yes.
And there's a natural bias and an imbalance on the bench. And dog would eat our supper if the former prosecutors alone will begin to try citizens. They are biased. By natural bias is in favor of the prosecution. That's a demographics and a statistics that the public should know when you're going to try and abolish the jury trials.
That's a significant point in terms of practice, what is on the ground. So
it's almost like you're trained to.
Absolutely. Sometimes we have to remember to separate principle from what practices on the ground. So in the case of Jamaica, 90% of the judges are former prosecutors. Now, when you spend 25 years as a prosecutor, 30 years as a prosecutor, 10, 12, your reflex positions is prosecutorial. That's all right. We're not saying you're a bad person because that's what made you a good prosecutor. Your reflex positions. And just the same, I'm a criminal. Well, when I practice at the defense bar, I used to do a fair amount of criminal defense work. So my reflex position is criminal defense. So when I see something, I jump up and say, wait, and I go and investigate. So I would come to the situation now having to adjust that reflex to recognize that the prosecutors get it right sometimes.
Yes. But Mr. Samuels, one of the things, the matter that you're supporting now before the Privy Council, also being supported by Isaac Buchanan and John Clark. One of the comments, for those of us who were watching online, I see comments coming, for example, noted journalist and attorney Dion Jackson Miller, that I think that case perhaps may open the discussion around jury trials in Jamaica as well. So
yes, I hasten to add that I know of a magistrate who was sent to prison because she was inappropriate verdict. So do we get rid of judges? Careful. The same thing that my friend had said. Not because of one bad apple, you throw away the entire bunch.
Yes.
That will happen. It's human. The important thing in that case is that it was discovered and it was dealt with and the person has been imprisoned. So what's up? Didn't get away with it.
Yes, that's right.
So you have systems. So the last thing, and either of you can take it, the matter of safety. I know you touched on it earlier, but we see, for example, in cases involving gangs, that is now heard by judges only. And one of the arguments that were made, or that was made rather, was that, when you talk about the safety, it's easier to provide security for one person, given the nature of it, rather than a panel of what, up to 12 people. What is your response to that?
I yield to Bert on it.
No, you go for that.
All right. There's no easy answer. Those are tough questions. No easy answer. Because on the other side, you have the bias that comes from being former prosecutor, aligned to the state. Remember, all of the 90% of the judges will be taking instructions from police during the entire time of their life. They'll be be positioning themselves on the side of the state for the entire. So one has to then decide, where do we come down? Do we come down on the greater likelihood of more justice if we have 7 Jamaicans? Judges are professional lawyers who have been judges for a long time. They have these professional biases that the regular man in the road don't have. So aside from this, I'm just saying, I am not one who is happy to see the whittling away of jury trials on the basis that it would be easier to protect a one judge than 7 persons. And as Bert said, I don't think we are at that place yet, but I hope we never get to. And even if we are worried about it, then we need to find a way to deal with the situation where the defendant and his lawyers know who the jurors are, as in see them, if we think, and then put them behind some sort of screen or something where people don't get to see who the jurors are in this particular trial, but that the lawyers and the family and so on can see. So I'm just saying, let's explore a lot of alternatives as to how best we can then protect the 7 Jamaicans who decide to go and try the big case, or the 9 or the 12, rather than saying, let's go the easy route here, man. It's easier if we just get a close personal security officer for the judge and not to worry about 7 different persons.
Yes.
But I do understand the point. It is not an easy situation.
And don't forget also that the prosecution has in recent times gotten permission to appeal against the jury's verdict.
Yes.
So they're getting it in every way. Everything that the DPP wants, Duke Street on the house hands it to them on a platter.
Yes, which is problematic, I think, in my humble opinion. But thank you so much, gentlemen, and we will continue the call for the right to jury, I think, to be enshrined in the Constitution.
Thank you for that support. Thank you.
It's something... yes, go ahead.
Well, I can tell you, I'm going to dip on the road because one person with one little bias arising from their historical experience could send somebody to the prison, when a 7 or a 9 persons would cancel out that experiential bias that the one judge might have.
And we need to move away from this thing that formal education make you, the only wise man in the room, so to speak.
No, the collective wisdom of 12 or 9 Jamaican is superior to that of a single judge.
Yes.
All the while on questions of fact. Because remember, the judges of the fact are the jurors. They decide what a fact is. The judge ensconced in a bubble. I mean, and we see that, in a bubble now and deal with the thing on the road no more. They know what go on the road in levels. So them coming to a fact on an issue might be tinged with a lot of bias because of their own experiences and vantage point. Thanks again.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you both as always. Take care.
Good work, Jamaican.
Blessed love.
Thanks. Now, you see, listeners, these are the conversations that we have with individuals, because it's important to educate the public on what is happening and why we're making certain calls. I want to take an early break, though, just to speak freely for the next couple of minutes on some of the important issues. So let's take a break so I don't have to break myself again as I have the conversation with you on here.
Tune in, log on and download the Bridge 99 FM app on your mobile device or tablet from the Google Play Store or Apple App Store. That's the Bridge 99 FM, all one word, in the Google Play Store and Apple App Store. The Bridge 99 FM, Caribbean vibes amplified. Download now.
Capital Betting is the only independently licensed bookmaker in Jamaica. We offer win, place, show, exacta, quinella, and many other types of betting options. Capital Betting even allows you to bet just 1 horse per race. That's right, you can buy just 1 horse to place. No need to pad your ticket if you don't want to. Capital Betting has over 21 locations island-wide, with more coming soon. We're open from 7 a.m. until the close of the last race, with instant payouts on all bets. Visit us today. Capital Betting, the better bet.
Must be 18 or older to play. Play responsibly.
JampJA.org. Mind your business, JA with Jump Online. Are your business? Fake keep
keep your government in line.
Use the MP tracker, if you watch how them a move. The account meter help them improve.
Take action.
Use the jump tool.
Track your MP cause it work for you. Mind your business, JA with Jump Online.
Let's monitor government at jumpja.org, funded by the European Union and the UK International Development.
It's Jamaican, it's Caribbean, to the world on the Bridge 99 FM. You heard?
The people's champion. Our mission is love. Our vision is love. Jamaicans for justice. The people's champion, champion, champion. Justice, justice for all. Justice under the law. Justice.
Welcome back to Let's Start Justice. We just wrapped up a discussion with noted attorneys Bert Samuels and Clyde Williams around the matter of jury trials in Jamaica. And you know, I certainly agree with both the gentlemen, the calls that they made. And when we look at those, for example, are exempted from the list, you're talking about people who, in some instances, can afford to be exempted because they are in a place of formal employment. So, in other words, their employers have a responsibility to respect the laws of the country versus an individual who's in the informal economy, wherein if you don't show up for work today to support a family, you have your business that you set up in your community and so on. Missing work for the day means missing the ability to feed your family. And in that regard, it's a couple of things to note. We need to widen the pool of jurors, potential jurors. Too many people are exempted from the list who perhaps could be asked to turn up. I myself, I have never been called to serve on a jury, and I would certainly welcome that opportunity as an individual. I also think, and again, that if you speak to some of the issues, for example, if you're not empaneled on a jury, you don't get money. You don't need to overhaul the entire system. All you need to do is to put the money where the gaps are and fix it. The other thing of importance here is that if people are unwilling to serve where they are not, you should impose fines. I don't support anything that is mandatory. I think we have to get to a stage wherein, as Jamaicans, we respect our civic duty. We have pride in the country. We understand the importance of serving. But who is teaching us these things? I think that level of patriotism is missing in the country. And it's because when your bread and butter issues are not being met, when you feel disrespected by state actors, when you look at the fact that corruption are rampant in the country, who could have take me out of my house to go serve on a jury? When you look at it, all right, who is respecting me and my needs? These are the things that Jamaicans ask themselves. So I think we have to be looking at a stage through the Ministry of Justice, through the Ministry of Education, through whatever state authorities, to try and bring back that civic pride where people want to participate while some of their basic needs are also met. Yeah? And I think that segues very quickly into last week's local government election. And by the way, we're not politically commenting on anything here at JFJ, save and except to indicate that when you look at the low levels of turnout, from a governance standpoint, from a civic participation standpoint, I want to make a comment on it. 7 or 8% of Jamaican citizen turnout last week to vote. Less than what was. So the level of political participation is reducing. Why is that important for us? If people no business what go on in the country, it means that you're no business in holding leaders to account. That's what it speaks to. So when you have low levels of voter turnout, parliamentarians, public officers, all of us have to be asking ourselves, why people not that interested in the system? Why are we this disengaged? It's something we need to ask ourselves. And it goes back to the point I made earlier. When you think there is high level of corruption, your basic needs are not being met, what interest would you have to participate in anything? It's something we have to ask ourselves, and what we can do to change the hearts and minds of Jamaican citizens while we hold our leaders to account. Speaking about accountability, We repeat our call here at JFJ for the Minister of Gender, the Honourable Olivia Babsy-Grange, to give us an update on the status of the Joint Select Committee that we expect to be convened looking at the Domestic Violence Act. I want to remind our listeners, and certainly Minister Grange, if she so comes across this broadcast, that a commitment was made to review the Domestic Violence Act in a comprehensive manner. From 2018, it has not yet been done. What we got were some minor amendments in late 2023. And despite the commitment again for a Joint Select Committee to be convened, we have heard nothing. Radio silence. But to Minister Grange and to the listeners, JFJ, we are on top of it. We have since written a letter to the Minister asking for that update, and we shall not forget, and we will continue to ask the Minister to do what was promised, because certainly the victims and survivors of domestic violence need the legislative framework to protect them and safeguard their interest. The other thing on my agenda to speak about is the matter of the Haitian refugees. Now, I want to remind the Jamaican listeners that this is not a clear-cut issue. We understand the perspective that, listen to me, man, Jamaica don't have much money. We can't take migrants like that or asylum seekers like that. We understand the economic pragmatism of the issue. We get it. However, I want to point out a couple things. We are signatory to international laws, conventions that speak to refugee status, asylum seekers. And if we have signed those conventions, we have a legal obligation to at least ensure that the provisions within it are adhered to. It is as simple as that. Outside of that, however, we are a member of CARICOM. How can we turn our backs on our brothers and sisters in Haiti without at first even ensuring that the eligibility criteria and processes as outlined in our own asylum policies here in Jamaica are respected? So yes, we understand the concerns about the country's affordability. But when all our return we back on Haiti, the first black nation to have secured their freedom, what does that say about us? Especially when Jamaicans, let's remind ourselves, Jamaicans, we have gone to other people's country to work and never to return. What would we say if those countries were to also adopt a similar approach? We must be guided. Common decency requires it, but certainly the laws require it as well. And it is that in mind we support the efforts of Melanie Elaine, the attorney at law who continues to demonstrate the leadership needed in civil society, the commitment needed in civil society to champion the rights of the Haitian migrants. And we have taken note that the Ministry of National Security will be reviewing its decision where it had denied the asylum status. And just to indicate for listeners, because I don't want to confuse you, last year in 2023, we had some 120 Haitian migrants who came to our shores seeking asylum status. And let me tell you, over 80 of them were forcibly removed in the dead of the night, not getting any attorney, not even the basic due process being adhered to. The 37 who were here, which include women and children, those were the ones that the government just recently said, you know what, not granting the asylum status. But when you look at the correspondences based on communication from Attorney Elaine, is that the eligibility criteria seem to have scant regard for certain things, weighing whether or not the asylum status is needed, whether or not you're going to be granting or denying based on humanitarian grounds, whether or not the best interest of the child was considered, whether or not the correspondence was even written in French, the language that the people speak. So you put it in language that it's not their first language, which is problematic. Due process demands that you are spoken to in a language or communicated to in a language of your native tongue. So on what grounds would they then seek appeal? Very, very problematic circumstances emerging there. And I say to the government of Jamaica, do better. Now, the last thing that I want to point out, Minister Warmington, well, former minister, thankfully, Everall Warmington, former caretaker for the People's National Party, Mr. Dennis Meadows. Disgraceful videos emerged on social media last week. Mr. Meadows talking about chopping, endorsing it, even giving people advice what to do with the money once they chop. And chopping, as you know, is the language that we use for a lot of scamming. And when you look at the high levels of crime and a lot of scamming being tied to illegal firearms and so on, and then subsequently the murder rate, or consequently the murders in the country. Disgraceful comments. The People's National Party moved, and Mr. Meadows was removed as caretaker, done by Trelawney. And I think they're having their internal structures further review whether or not Mr. Meadows would also be removed as the constituency chair. And for those who don't follow politics, normally once you're constituency chair, you're the natural person to run for the party in a general election. And I see Mr. Meadows making some comments that he's not removed in that regard. So we look forward to that, but certainly we welcome his removal as caretaker, and I hope that the People's National Party don't think that as Jamaicans it's a 9-day wonder thing where you can slip back Mr. Meadows in later on. But to Mr. Warmington, who was a sitting cabinet member with the government, following howls of calls for his resignation, he was removed from the cabinet. Welcomed move. I note with concern, however, that disrespectful so-called apology that was given, saying to the Jamaican people that the disgraceful comments made in the video was not what it was. But I also note with concern that the Prime Minister has not come out and publicly condemned the comments made in that video and distanced himself from it. That was not done. Only an interview, I believe, was done on another radio program where the Prime Minister spoke to it, but he has not come to the nation to say, we don't endorse this type of thing. The concern for JFJ here. Mr. Warmington remains on the oversight committee that oversees the progress, monitors what is happening with the Integrity Commission. He remains there. He also remains on 2 joint select committees reviewing the Integrity Commission Act and the Protected Disclosure Act. Those are laws dealing with anti-corruption and integrity for public office. How can Mr. Warmington then remain? We believe that he ought to be removed from those parliamentary committees. And I go further, that Mr. Warmington ought to be doing some introspection and adopt the principle of self-accountability and remove himself from the House of Parliament altogether. And it is that in mind that we support the call coming from the Integrity Commission that Mr. Warmington ought to be removed from these committees. To add to that, I want to remind the listeners that the Electoral Commission of Jamaica, the commissioners, were given the role of the ombudsman. Remember, that is when the government went to Parliament and shoved through that ill-advised change with their simple majority vote. So the Electoral Commission of Jamaica, rather, we have not heard a peep out of them in that capacity. Whether or not they have gotten official complaints about Mr. Warmington's presence on the Oversight Committee and his conduct, whether or not they've even taken a glean of what is happening in the media to say that we've gotten these complaints, these are the courses of action that we've taken. Nothing from the ECJ, and that is problematic, right? So accountability means you go all the way. Accountability don't mean that you go halfway. Our children are looking on. All of us are looking on. And I say to the Prime Minister that you have a moral duty, an obligation to us to demonstrate true leadership where you ask Mr. Warmington certainly to step down, but also to use the parliamentary structures and systems that exist, starting with the Ethics Committee, to investigate Mr. Warmington's conduct and to aid in the process of him being removed from the Oversight Committee and the Joint Select Committee. Without those types of actions taking place, we say to you, Prime Minister, that you would have failed in your leadership duties and as the head of government in holding one of your own to account. All right, that is it for Let's Start Justice. Who won the trivia? Now, just to indicate, those who are 70 and older, once you reach that age, you can no longer serve on the jury. And if you're under 18 years old, you can also not serve. All right? And I think Kimmy is the winner on Instagram. So, Kimmy, we will reach out to you. So, yes, yay, congrats to you. Anyway, see you next week. We're out of time. Thanks again for staying with us for the hour. We appreciate your presence always as we continue to build our brand and continue to build our show and continue to support Jamaicans who need our help. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Jamaicans, by justice, the people's champion, champion. Justice, justice for all. Justice under the law. Justice, Jamaica demand. Right to life, right to liberty. Out of many we are one in a Jamaica. Make it a better place for the boys and girls. Created equal by the creator. For equal rights and opportunities. No to unlawful detention and police brutalization. Class, gender, race or religion. We not tolerate discrimination.
To join the fight against injustice, contact us at 755-4524 or JamaicансForJustice.org.
The people's champion.
Don't watch no film.